What's up, family? Welcome to Mini Bytes session 11, and today's theme is isolation. My name is Erin, and I'm an executive coach, and I work with a philosophy that is also a program called the Trifecta Core Health Initiative. And this program focuses on empowerment, eating intelligence, and physical fitness. So I began doing these mini bite sessions recently in response to some requests to do some videos, talk a little bit more about my daily practices and how I'm working through certain real life issues. And today we're going to talk a little bit about isolation. And for me personally, isolation has played a big role in my story. Isolation for me has led to self-sabotage in the form of destructive habits, self-defeating stories, and surface-level relationships. So isolation is not to be confused with solitude. I do believe I need a certain amount of alone time to process things, to integrate new learnings, and I try to take time to do that each day. What was happening for me, in particular, these last 5, 6 years, is I went through periods of straight up isolation. I literally moved to the big island of Hawaii at one point and rented a house and had very little contact with humans for a period of a few months. And that was part of my path, one that I'm grateful for. But it was also during that time that self-defeating stories were abundant, destructive habits increased, and many of my relationships felt rather surface level. The one relationship that was growing in a meandering way was my relationship with myself, which I do believe was a purpose that was served in that. Isolation is an experience, I would call it, that I believe I gravitate toward isolation when I'm not well, when I'm not emotionally well, when I'm not mentally well, when I'm not physically well. The analogy is like a dog. When a dog's sick, the dog goes off into a corner behind the tree to be sick and die. Doesn't want to be around people. That's kind of what happens to me when I'm feeling challenged or I'm struggling in certain ways in my life. Is I have a tendency toward isolating. And again, a certain amount of solitude to process and integrate is one thing, but if I have too much time on my own, if I have enough time alone to kind of sit with the stories that I'm telling myself, this can become a very dangerous thing. It can impact my relationships with others. It can lead me to justify making choices that are not healthy, choices about my thoughts that are toxic, and without anyone else to bounce those thoughts and stories off of because I'm isolating, these things will just continue to grow and consume my world. So I have become more conscious of isolation in my own life. I read an article this morning about seclusion and how it's sort of the kryptonite for creativity. And it's really the same thing. You can call it seclusion, you can call it isolation. And for me, I used to call isolation solitude, and I used to say I needed my alone time. But I check in with that now. I check in with it, and I spend far less time alone than I used to. And when I do spend that time alone, I'm conscious of the thoughts that I'm having, and I hold space for what I will call negative thought processes, but I'm more conscious of am I feeding the isolation right now, and do I need to move through that? So my solution to isolation is basically do all the things I don't want to do. So generally when I'm not feeling well, I don't want to interact with people, I don't want to go out. So it's really good for me to have a routine of some type of hanging out with fellow humans on a daily basis. It could be a different group, a book club or a running group that one can have on a daily basis. I have my own different groups that I engage with on a daily basis, and that keeps me doing something consistently with other humans in case I start to get to a point where I want to isolate and I don't want to interact. If I don't want to make a call, I do. If I don't want to take a call, I do. So I generally, when I'm tending toward isolation, if I'm aware of it and I can check in on it, I end up doing pretty much all the things that I don't want to do, and then it seems to pass within. Sometimes it takes a few days, and sometimes it can happen pretty quickly. So, sometimes a little longer than that. And throughout that process, I'm gentle with myself. I recognize that I'll have these times, and I move through it, and I move through it with a strong support system. So thank you all for your time today. I love you all, and enjoy.